Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We have finally gotten inflamed by the actions of the Japanese at Pearl Harbor. So what did we do at that point, and how quickly did we move?
Well, we were fortunate that our carriers were not in port. And I think that the Japanese made two big mistakes at Pearl Harbor. Number one, they didn't bomb our dry docks. Number two, the oil storage tanks were all on the hillside, and they didn't take care of that either.
They didn't have radar either, did they?
No. So consequently, we were able to repair our ships at Pearl Harbor. Now, the crisis came 6 months later when we picked up radio signals and we thought they were going to move into Midway. We couldn't be sure. So we had them at Midway radio if they were running short of fresh water. And the Japanese picked that up, and the Japanese said Tora, that was what they used, code name for Midway. They're running short of water. So we knew that they were going to attack Midway, and we laid the trap. Now, the fellow that was in Torpedo Squadron 8, John Gay, the sole survivor, he and I became friends after the war, and he said, this is a funny story. He said, you know, Bill said, all my aircraft was shot down, and I was in the water by myself. And finally, PBY picked me up the next day and took me to Honolulu. And he said, Admiral came in and said, understand that your wounds are doing fine. What'd you do? He said, I soaked them in salt water. So anyway, we defeated the Jap.
So we did
Yeah.
ultimately drop the bomb on the Japanese, and that shut that down in a hurry.
That is correct. Now, what we had to do in Germany, we had to give them a deceptive presentation as to where we were going to land. We didn't want them to know we were going to land in Normandy. The Germans thought it would be Calais because we had put these dummy tanks and aircraft right across the channel. And it was rumored that Patton would lead that group. And we even found a Brit that was about 50 years old and got permission from his family to dress him up as a major, an officer, and put a satchel with a chain around his arm, took him in a mini sub, let him float ashore, and they found it, and they had all the information about the fact that the invasion would come in at Calais.
Ah, diversion.
They deceived them.
Yeah.
So when we finally went in to Normandy, we had over 7,000 ships. About 1,200 of them were Navy craft. The rest landing ships, merchant ships, and so forth. The Germans had the Atlantic Wall. They were pretty ready.
They were dug in.
Yeah, but Hitler, he wasn't sure that this was the invasion.
Oh.
He wanted to wait. He waited 2 days, matter of fact.
To do what?
To release his panzers on the Normandy shore against our forces.
Because he thought this was just a tease?
That's correct. So just to summarize it, we lost, and the Germans together, over 425,000 men. I visited that cemetery where we got 9,000 buried in Normandy. It was all just, they didn't have a chance coming ashore. No chance whatsoever. And I'd like to tell you about one individual that was a brave guy. They wouldn't take him into service because of his heart condition. That was Theodore Roosevelt. But with his pull, they had to take him. He was a brigadier general. And a friend of mine said, I saw him in July. But in late July, had a massive heart attack, and he died. He was buried there in the cemetery and received the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Wow. Some brave people back in those days.
Pardon?
Brave people back in those days.
Very brave, because he didn't have to be there.
But it united the United States, I would think, because we now had, we came together to fight the enemies on both sides of our country. So after we get through Normandy, do we just gradually start marching forward and retaking things that Hitler had taken away from him?
That's correct. The first town that we took was little village there in France. But I mean, it was just little by little. It took a long time to get through France because the Germans had good defenses.
Mm-hmm.
I've visited Normandy many times, and boy, those pillboxes with those huge guns and machine guns were devastating.
Did we have any help? I know that I am Italian.
We had done one thing.
There's a joke that we had propellers on both ends of our airplane. The Italians did.
Well, what happened was there was no
we
Luftwaffe.
couldn't decide.
There was no Luftwaffe because we had knocked out the ball bearing factories and all their fuel factories.
And we did that. America
we did that. So during the invasion of Normandy, no German aircraft.
We took them out.
Took them out.
And with that, we were able to advance and gain an advantage, ultimately.
You know, I'd like to summarize it by saying war is unpleasant. However, if we're going to remain out of war, we must remain a strong nation.
Mm-hmm. Well, in this day and age, and I don't want to really talk politics, but there are a lot of threatening things going on around the world as we sit here today talking. I don't think we know what the future holds. I know that I don't know how to predict the future. But do you feel we're strong at this time? Strong enough to take on whatever comes our way?
Well, actually, you know, I can tell you about the Air Force. We've been gutted. The last two presidents that we had were not military men and gave us nothing.
So we need to work on that a bit.
And consequently, the Air Force, for example, we need 3,000 pilots right today. Just starting to get money back. My message to all Americans is if you want to remain free, you better be strong.
And with that, we're going to call it quits for now.
Good.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Good. My pleasure.
And the rest, as they say, is history. This is Our Issues Birmingham. We'll see you next week.